Welcome back to This Takes the Cake. We're super honored and excited. We have Will Coley here from Listen With Us, a private wedding podcast, and we are so excited to learn about this. This is so intriguing and interesting, and I'm just excited to know more about you, Will.
Thanks so much for having me today. Yeah, I've been doing audio and podcasting for, I don't know, I guess about 12 years or so. I've been done a lot for public radio and for podcasts for Condé Nast, like the New Yorker Radio Hour. And
You
it,
definitely have a radio voice for sure.
you think so?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Well, they still I live in New York, but they still comment on my Southern accent up here. But yeah, so I yeah, it's just a medium I fell in love with. I found a tape from when my father showed me how to record on a cassette thing when I was 6 years old, because he used to go on long business trips and record himself just talking as a way to write letters to his parents. And so I have audio. It's actually a clip on my website of him showing me how to record. So it's
That's
something
cool.
that's been with me from a very young age and something that I really love.
That's
So,
awesome. That's cool. And so you grew up you said Davidson,
yeah, Davidson, North
North Carolina?
Carolina.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you decided you liked the cold and moved to New York? No, I'm kidding.
No, I actually came up here for graduate school. I was studying public administration, and I, for many years, worked in nonprofits doing immigration and community change kind of work. But
Oh,
audio
wow.
was sort of my the thing that I kind of felt a side hustle for a long time until it became my main hustle.
That's cool.
So
So have you lived in New York since then?
yeah, I've been in New York. I added it up recently, like 15, 20 years. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I've
Yeah.
realized I've lived outside of North Carolina more than I've lived in it. So
Right. Did people ever say, "Where are you from?"
yeah, all the time. Because I think y'all is too useful a word. I'm not getting rid of that word. So,
Same, same. They'll be like, "Are you from Alabama?" I'm like, "No."
I lived in Alabama when I was very little, but
Oh, you
yeah.
did? Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's too funny.
Yeah.
Okay, talk to us. What inspired you the idea of creating the private wedding podcast?
Well, I went to a wedding a couple of years ago, some friends of mine, and their grandparents weren't able to come for, I don't know if I think it was before lockdown. But anyway, I thought it would be very easy for me to record the ceremony and some of the speeches at the wedding reception and collaborate with the DJ at the event to do this. Uh, and it was and then I put it on SoundCloud for them to listen to. And I looked at it a couple of months later, years later, and there'd been tons of listens to it. I mean, it was private, but it was only, it had been shared within the family so many times that they really enjoyed it and liked it. And part of me then was thinking, wow, I wonder if there's a business here that I could do something to help people, to record. Cause I think, um, it was something they didn't have a videographer. And I
Okay.
think, you know, one thing I think about video is great, but I think video is great at capturing visual action, like the flower girl walking down the aisle or throwing the bouquet. But
Right.
the audio was really good at capturing what was spoken and what was said at the wedding. So that's why I kind of started exploring that. Yeah.
That's so cool. So I guess let's explain to people what the private wedding podcast is. Like, how do you sell it, present it? Are you there? I guess let's just talk through that process.
Yeah, well, it's a couple of things. I mean, I've been developing a menu of services, but it's the reason I say private is that it's possible to share audio via podcast apps to only people who have the link, the people that you
The
want to listen to.
access.
So, if people are worried about sharing private things publicly, or they're really apprehensive about being in a public show, it's a way to share it with friends and family that's really easy because everybody's got a cell phone and they can listen whenever they want to. And so, one of the things that I've been exploring and doing more of is kind of capturing couples' love story. And it becomes sort of like a wedding promo where they tell the story. I interview the couple separately and then edit together, like how they met, decided to start dating and get married. And then there's a little bit of this is what to expect at the wedding. And so I've been doing that. That's one of the things I do. It's sort of a pre-wedding thing or or an engagement party kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I can record the ceremony and the events and also capturing guest testimonies or perspectives, like what they think and advice they have and, that fun stuff that guests can say once they've been drinking a
This is
little.
so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've never, until obviously you reached out, I never heard of anybody or anything like this. So it's definitely a really unique thing because we always capture everything mainly in photo. I mean, now
Mm,
that we have a cell phone, we can do video and things like that. But I mean, to look back this and have these things down the road is pretty cool. So
Yeah, yeah, and that's one thing I want to, stress too is that you can use it for anniversaries. Like it could
remember how
be,
much you loved me 30 years ago?
yeah, yeah, totally.
No
But
kidding.
it could be, yeah, and I think that's a use for it as well. So
So you're at the wedding as well?
yeah, and
Okay.
I was, yeah, it becomes sort of like a guest experience in a way because
I
I was at
love
an
it.
engagement party this past summer, and I have this big fuzzy microphone,
Okay.
that
Yeah, like the
is
movies.
kind of intimidating, but less intimidating than a video camera. And so like people, that I interviewed were like, "Oh, wow, I've never been interviewed before. I feel famous." And so it became this sort of like guest experience for them to like, for the couple to demonstrate that they felt that these people were important enough that they wanted to hear what they had to say.
Right.
So, yeah, so I go around and at the engagement party, I was interviewing people about like, why do you think they're a good match? Or do you have any advice for them? Stuff, some interesting questions. So I got some fun responses for that. And then
I
I
love
edit
it.
them all together. I take my questions out and I edit it all together into a short audio documentary. I've been saying audio documentary more because I think podcast begin a lot of people now think podcast is like this. It's like two people talking in a studio or
Right.
something, but kind of what I'm making is more like an audio documentary that captures, the spirit and the feelings of the event that I then share via a podcast app.
Right. It's like the guest book, but now it's virtual and they can
Yeah,
hear it,
and
right? I mean, and they
yeah, and
have
they
the
do.
things like leave advice or something. So
Yeah, and they do have those things now. Those audio guest
the
books are sort of a
phones.
trend now, yeah, with those
Mhm.
little phones, which is great. But I think what I'm offering is like by me being there and interviewing people, I can pull more information out of people. And actually, I'm also editing the final product. So it's not just a list of, it's not just
Random
a bunch of
messages.
files. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like edited together to make it sound like a real radio or podcast episode, audio documentary.
All right. No, that's awesome. So would you say you can do this for other things other than weddings?
Yeah,
Like a family reunion? I don't know. I'm just throwing out some ideas or
yeah, totally. I mean, I've been focusing on weddings because I just feel like there's something about the moment and the
the
energy that
happiness,
goes
the
into having
joy.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm doing something for somebody's 50th birthday where people are going to send in voice memos and I'm going to edit those together. But yeah, or baptisms, memorials, lots of things you could do it for. I mean,
No.
another mention too is that doing slideshows for receptions. So like when they do those the wedding receptions where they show the photos of the couple when they're younger and stuff
When
like
they're
that.
babies, yeah.
Yeah, I could put that together, but also bring in people's voices, narrating that as well. So
Oh,
it's more like a video that you just play and you don't have to give a speech per se.
that could be cool.
So yeah.
And it's funny you say this because every year my dad, he interviews my niece and nephew, and always asks them like what they want to be when they grow up. So each year it changes, and
Oh wow.
it's so funny. But like it would be really cool to have those all put together,
Oh yeah,
um,
totally. He does it with audio. How does he record it?
just on a cell phone.
Oh,
Nothing
that's
like
cool. No,
fancy.
cell
But
phones are
yeah,
actually pretty good, like yeah, I use them as backup. So, but yeah, no, exactly. And I think
right.
there's something, I mean, as an audio person, I think there's something about audio that's really special because you have to picture in your mind what's going on, and so it sort of pulls you in and makes you more involved and it connects more with your emotions in a way than I think video does. But I don't want to badmouth video. So
Right. Okay, so what's something funny or crazy that you've had somebody say or that you've experienced?
Well, I kind of had an ethical dilemma because, like,
Uh-oh.
where I'm invited by the parents of the couple, and then they've had too much to drink, and they start saying stuff, or they don't sound ideal. But that's where editing comes in. You can make things sound better. But I think people love to tell like embarrassing stories and things like that. So I always give the couple the option to edit the final product. So I can share once I edit together, I have a transcript and I can work with the couple and make sure that, another one, uh, another couple, it was a story about it was their love story about how they dated secretly for 2 years at work. They worked together and they were secretly dating and
Oh
didn't
my
tell
god.
anybody. And so it hinged on the bride got drunk or had drunk too much at a work event and was calling her sister, and so they wanted me to take that out because they didn't want their grandparents to know that she drunk too much. But yeah, it was a fun thing. But I brought in voices of their coworkers and stuff to talk about when they found out that they were dating and how
Oh my God,
surprised they
that's so
were.
cool.
Yeah, so that was fun.
That's cool. So like, let's say they do a first look and they do like, I've had clients do like a private, they share their vows prior to the ceremony.
Mm.
So would you just be there with the microphone to capture that process?
Yeah, I definitely could do that. I mean, I think it's yeah, I mean, anything that the couple wants to do it. And I think, I've heard that, for example, elopements are up, that people are, or micro
Mhm.
weddings, people are doing micro weddings. So
Oh
it's a
yeah.
way to kind of extend the participation of people who couldn't be there. And it's not as, um, eh, I find that microphones are less intimidating than having a big camera and a bunch of lights. It's like you kind of
They
almost
are.
forget the microphone's there. And then, you'll have that to share with other people. And I think the sharing is the big thing I love about this, is because it's integrated into your phone so that it's not like everybody has to sit down and watch a video. They can actually do it while they're doing other stuff. They're at the gym or washing dishes or whatever. They can be listening to, the recording, the documentary about the event. Yeah.
That's cool. So about how long is it? I guess it depends, right?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, for the couple, the love stories have been generally like around 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay. Oh,
Because
cool.
I mean, I've heard that there's kind of an understanding in the podcast industry that that's the length that people want because they commute that amount of time usually, but people don't
Makes
commute as
sense.
much anymore. So I don't really know, but I mean, I could make it longer or shorter, but like the wedding ceremony is as long as the wedding ceremony wants to be. And then I've done episodes where it's just the guest perspectives, and those are like 15, 20 minutes too.
Right.
So yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. So I guess you could create a couple different clips out of it.
Well,
Audio.
episodes,
Or
yeah. So like where I've done like an episode like our love story, the second episode is the maybe the wedding ceremony, the third could be the speeches from the wedding
that's
reception, and
cool.
then the fourth could be perspective. And then a fifth could be report back from the honeymoon, like the couple saying here's what the honeymoon was like and telling people what it was about. But yeah, the speeches is another thing I really like about using this medium, because I feel like, I mean, videographers will sometimes capture bits of speeches, but there's nobody really capturing the entire speech. And I think some of the speeches are so amazing at weddings that, people remember them, but not quite. And maybe they're written down. But I think having a audio recording of that in full of what was said, I think is something that people really like to have.
No, for
So,
sure. And I have a lot of requests. People don't want to hire a videographer where they're like, we really want to, have the toast recorded and have the
mm,
ceremony recorded. So that
yeah,
would be right up your alley for what
totally.
you do,
Yeah, totally.
because a lot of times videographers are like, oh, we don't do that. We'll be there for all day coverage, type thing. So yeah. So do you travel or will travel?
I have. I mean,
Okay.
I'm based in New York, so I was kind of focused on the New York area, but I'm open to traveling. I was in North Carolina and did an engagement party, so I've done those things. But yeah, I'd
No,
be down for that.
no, that's awesome. Um, and I
Oh,
mean,
and sorry, I should say, sorry
oh
to
yeah,
interrupt.
no, go for it.
That said, I think that there are aspects I could do remotely. Like I'm actually working with a couple in Australia,
Oh,
for example, who I'm going to record them remotely to get their love story and then edit that together. So,
yeah, I
I don't
guess
have to be there in
you don't have to
person.
be there on
Yeah.
the actual wedding day. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think doing that, I mean, like you said, then they could have that and play it over a slideshow. We've even had like for intros for the reception, like a whole video, but this could be like a voiceover with it too.
Mm,
And they could live anywhere. Okay, that's
yeah.
cool. So with that being said, I mean, obviously the couples, they can customize the podcast to fit their needs. So whether they want you there for cocktail hour to
Mm,
be the new guest book and interact, or be there for their vows, because with the voice recording, I mean, you get them crying, you get those
mm.
things that video don't can't really capture.
Yeah, totally. And I think, yeah, it's just it connects more with the emotion in a way, because you're more participating in the listening experience.
Right.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, I always in the car, I always listen to podcasts or something on the way in. So no, I think that would be really cool. So
Yeah.
okay, how do you ensure the process is really like seamless and non-intrusive and fun when you're at a wedding or an event?
Huh. Well, I think, I'm there with this. I have headphones and I have this big fuzzy microphone when I'm there. And so people are
They're
like,
like, who is he?
yeah, like at this engagement party I was at, they had, it was in a restaurant and the owners were like, ooh, is that media? Who's here? Kind of thing, And so, I have professional gear. I look like a professional. So people are intrigued by that. And then, I go around and, ask people for permission to speak to them, about it. And I explain what it's for. And I usually ask people to introduce themselves because it's audio and you can't see who it is. It's good to have people to say, this, I'm so and so, and this is how I'm connected to the wedding couple. And just a very brief conversation with people about questions that I maybe have asked the couple if they want me to ask. But I think asking why they're a good match or any advice for them are time tested questions that people like to answer, or how they know the couple, I think is a fun one too. And then,
Right.
afterwards I make an edit where I edit, as I said out, it's not about me being there. So I edit it out and make a non-narrated documentary. I mean, I had another thing I'm interested in exploring is actually getting, like, if the couple, for example, had a family member that wanted to be the reporter, I'd be
Oh,
open to
cool.
having someone go around and like be like the
The,
BBC or whatever
yeah, the
NPR
NPC. Yeah,
reporter,
whatever.
and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and report that. I'd also love to try. Uh, I mean, like different kind of themes. Like I jokingly said there would be fun to do like a Real Housewives version where you have the bridesmaids talking about what's going on. But there's various different ways we could do it. Or for example, it could be a recap. A lot of podcasts right now are like about TV shows and movies where people recap like what they thought about it. Like
Right.
I could envision an episode where the couple would remember what happened at the wedding, and then you could play clips from the wedding itself. So it's sort of like they're remembering immediately after what happened
Yeah.
at the wedding, the things that they liked. So there's different styles we could do. I mean, the non-narrated is the one that I'm, have done the most, but I think there's all different types of media and ways we could do it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And now that you're like thinking, my head's like spinning of different things to do as well. So like at some weddings, and we're doing it, we put on an expo here in Myrtle Beach in a few weeks, and one of the things we have a couple come on stage and they sit back to back in chairs, and we ask questions like, who said I love you first, or who,
Yeah.
so that could be something cool to
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
incorporate,
yeah, yeah. That could be recorded and turned into a.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I'm sure most of the time, I mean, their answers should be the same, but sometimes they're the opposite.
Yeah. That's
So
like that game show. What was it? That used to be on TV where,
um
yeah, I can't remember the name of it. Where they
yeah.
would write on a piece of paper and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
that could be cool to incorporate, or something fun, that
Yeah.
if you weren't at the wedding, that you could incorporate into.
Yeah, totally.
So that's cool. All right. Well, tell us maybe some cool stories or something fun that maybe highlight a special moment or something that was meaningful to a couple that you had recently, or anything that you're like, oh, that's so cool.
Hmm. That's a good question. Well, I recently interviewed a couple and made something about their love story about how they met, and the bride, or I don't know, do you call them? I guess, yeah, it's the bride before they
Right.
get
Yeah.
married. She was telling this story about how she had a friend who said, I'm going to date 100 guys. And if I don't find my person, and after dating 100 guys, I'm just going to be single. And she's like, well, I can't do 100, so I'll do 50 or something like
Oh,
this. She had a lower number, and she kept a record of, all the guys that she met, kind of thing. And, some of them were only one dates kind of thing. And,
right. Yeah. No, for sure.
and she, was using apps and things like that. And she's Jewish, and a friend of hers invited her on a Jewish singles cruise. And she's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And then she finally came around and said, look, you can get your own cabin. You can, do,
That's a
it's,
thing. I never heard
yeah,
that.
yeah, apparently. And so she went on this cruise and ended up meeting a guy, and he was the 50th, the 50th guy that
Oh,
she had met. She didn't realize until later. And he, what was the funny thing? They were wearing they had a onesies party, and he was wearing like a Pokemon onesie. So it was kind of, I mean, yeah. So yeah, this is part of their story. But they met on this Jewish singles cruise, large part because they were gossiping about the other people there, and they realized they love to gossip. So that was part of their connection. Although, and they had a cross country long distance relationship, and yeah, they're getting married next year. So it was fun to record them and hear the story. And I enjoy like talking to the couples separately, because then it's like there's some fun, like where it's people remember different aspects of it, and then I get them together at the end. So yeah,
Oh my
that
god,
was
that
really
is
fun.
wild. I didn't even know that was a thing either for
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And
crazy. Well, that's cool. And then once you obviously you did that interview, you edited it, do you give them a time for like feedback for them to
mhm.
say, "Oh my gosh, please take that out," or "This is so perfect. I love everything you did, Will."
Yeah. Yeah, I think, well, in that one, for example, the groom said multiple times that they were big nerds or they were weirdos. Now he said they were weirdos, and like said, I think we said we were weirdos a little too many times. Can you take that out? So I was able to take that out. But yeah, but in that one and another, well, the other love stories that I've done, uh, they tell the love story, and then I ask, what's the wedding going to be like? What can you expect at the wedding? And so they tell stories about, well, this is what we're planning to have. Give a little teaser for it. And another couple I interviewed, actually it was a second marriage for one of them, and the groom had two young sons, so I interviewed them as well. And they said what they were looking forward to. But what was funny, the funny thing about these is that they become um, part of the wedding itself. So then at the wedding for that couple, the speeches reference the podcast. So they would say, somebody
That's
say,
cool.
I learned in the podcast that so and so, da da da, and which I thought was kind of funny. And then when we interviewed people at the wedding after, at the wedding reception, people were like, "Oh, am I going to be in the podcast? Is my voice going to be on the podcast?" So it
Oh,
became this
that's
funny
cool.
kind of like circle where it was like it promoted the wedding, people knew about it, they got information, and then they want to be a part of it. So it became,
Yeah,
a fun thing for everybody.
that's really cool. So how do you send the podcast or how do they get
Yeah,
the
well,
link?
it's a private link, and
Okay.
so you would share it with, like you could email it to your friends and family.
Right.
I would upload it and then share it with them, and then when they go to the link, it would open in their podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcasts or
Okay. So it would
Pocket
open
Cast.
in something like that.
Yeah, and so it would be
That's cool.
there like any other show, but only the people who know about it would know it's there.
That's
And
cool.
and it could go in Spotify too, but Spotify doesn't quite have the private thing. But again, it's like there's so much on Spotify, you may not. Um,
Unless you're looking up the name
yeah,
or who
yeah,
exactly, or
yeah,
you go viral.
yeah. I mean, but maybe people are okay with it being public. It's just the private thing I think is attractive because it lowers the pressure on having to
Oh,
be
yeah.
compete with other podcasts or be excited. It's just your own story, and then you feel more comfortable that who's listening to it, and that there are people that you love and you want them to be a part of this experience.
Right. No, I think that's so cool. And so some of these guests that come to the weddings, they know the client or, they don't know them that well. So to have a podcast prior for them to maybe learn a little bit more about them. I mean, I've been to weddings and I didn't really know how they met. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
like to hear those fun things and kind of know is very intriguing and interesting to listen to.
it's sort of
Um,
like, yeah, you've done your homework before you go to the wedding because you
yeah,
can hear this about
exactly.
and understand. And yeah, I think that's true. It may add to the experience if you know how they met, and then
Right.
yeah,
And even if they talk about the wedding and what they're going to have and expectations, you really don't have a visual till you get there. So
right,
that would be really cool to experience. They said they were going to have I don't know, a live painter doing drawings or something, and then
yeah,
they mentally have in their head what this is going to look like, and then they get there and they get to experience it. So
yeah, totally.
that is,
Although some people don't want to give away too much,
well,
they want
yeah,
to
I'm just,
surprise
yeah, some
people.
people
So
don't
it's
want to tell anything. Like,
yeah, it's
yeah,
sort of
no,
like, well,
for
it's gonna be
sure.
a surprise, but it's gonna be really fun. So
Right.
yeah,
Well, and that, I could even see this as like a save the date. I don't know if it have a QR code or something
yeah.
that they could scan the QR code and listen to podcast one and be like, each month we'll have a new podcast and the weddings in April or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, they could have the QR code could be like in the printed invitation, like, and you could
Mhm.
hold it up and it could connect to the podcast
Connect
app.
to the private
Yeah,
link.
no, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
So, I don't know. My head's, like, spinning of ways that we can
Yeah, no,
incorporate
your
this.
wedding planner hat on.
Yeah, I know, right? So, no, this is so cool. I think you could even do it for, like, corporate events too. I mean, maybe a big corporate event celebrating a 25th or 50th, and these people have worked for the company for so long, to be at an event and be able to, or not even at the event, just recordings of, working with the industry. We recently did the son of Waffle House CEO, and they are, I mean, they're everywhere. And so, like, people that have worked for Waffle House for 20, 30, 40 years, they say. So, to do some type of cool podcast, within the company that they could have would be cool for people that have worked, with them for a long time. So,
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. I'd love to do something like that
yeah,
too. And that could be, again, that could also be a slideshow where you bring in different voices, and show pictures of stuff. It doesn't have to be someone on camera talking.
right.
It could be, yeah, a multimedia type thing.
And so the editing process, about how long does that take? Is this a lot easier than video or just as hard as video? Because I mean, you got to listen to it, so that takes time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's faster than video in a way because it's less, you don't have the visual element. So I can, depending on people's timelines, I could turn it around in a couple of days.
Right,
And then, they could, give feedback and we could have it out pretty quickly.
right.
Um, with weddings, it seems like people plan well in advance. So
Yeah,
that gives us a lot of time to play with.
most
But
of them do. We've got some last minuters,
yeah,
but yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
totally. But yeah, no, it just, but yeah, you're right. It's a little easier to do. The thing about audio is that people don't realize well, this is a video podcast, but an audio only podcast, people don't quite realize how much editing goes into it. I don't
Right.
know if you've
Yeah.
heard StoryCorps on NPR,
Hmm.
those interviews, those are highly edited. I mean, they're taking parts of words and breaths from other parts and putting it together to make it sound natural. And so, I mean, it's not changing the meaning, but it's just tightening and making it, more broadcast. And people aren't even aware about it. And so that's the thing is that, you know, we often think in audio is that people don't realize all the work that goes into it.
Right. Yeah. No, it's for sure. We recently had helped with a commercial, and it's mind blowing of how much energy, time, and effort, and how much money they spend, and how many times they shoot something for an hour and a half to take 2 seconds from it. So
Totally. Yeah. To make it
same
the best you can. Totally.
same concept. Yeah. Same for planning a wedding. I mean, we plan for 6, 9 months, up to 2 years out for 4 hours, 5 hours. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing this?
14 years.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, I'm only 24, so, I'm kidding. I wish, I wish. Okay,
Uh,
any advice
you
you
must have some good stories to tell. That would be a good
oh,
one.
oh my gosh. The story you gotta listen to our podcast. There's, one that is called, oh shoot, Peyton, what's the one we did in the islands? What's the wedding podcast? What do we name that one? Rogers Island. Yeah, it was called The Wedding Weekend from Hell.
Oh, I haven't heard that. I've
You
listened to
got
your podcast, but I
you
haven't heard that
you
episode.
gotta go listen to that one. That's a good one. And then there was one undercover.
Uh-huh.
There was a venue that we're not allowed to work at. Nothing we did wrong. We're just not allowed to work there. They only have certain vendors. Anyways, you should listen to that one. That one is wild.
Wow.
It was funny. We in South Carolina we wear recorders at our events because people are crazy and
You mean like body cams?
well, no, it doesn't. It's just audio.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Well,
wow.
we mainly use it for social media, so that way, like we recently had a wedding and um the we were missing a whole table. And so I'm like, "Oh my god, girls, we're missing." So I had all the audio from it and then obviously video. So we were able to create this cool video with audio like in the moment.
Oh,
Because we can't really recreate that in the moment. I mean, like we have like 2 minutes to put a table together. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah.
like, but we had the audio. But the wedding that they did undercover, we incorporated some of the audio from it, and it is so good.
So you're
So,
just like walking around. Are you interviewing people or?
no, 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 no. Just for like to make reels and things for social
Oh,
media.
okay.
Yeah. Because we don't have enough time to like pull out do all that when we're there,
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I hadn't heard
um,
about that, where you're not
yeah,
like
yeah.
those little ones that they have on TikTok videos, that's what you're
Here, I'll show you once we get
okay.
done. But yeah, they're literally like, when people ask us, we're like, oh, that's like our step recorder. We don't want them to know, but it's always good to have too, to help back and listen to like training for the girls of like how to handle a situation. There's a lot of good positive to use from it as well. So like,
Wow.
because
No,
in the
now you're that's very tantalizing for somebody, an audio producer, thinking like, what can be made from that? Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, for sure. I mean, because when we think about it, we're like going to the bath because it just records all day. I mean, we're not like stopping and starting it. So I'm like, oh wow, you listen to me use the restroom.
I have a friend who mic'd himself for like, he's a radio producer. He's really great, and he mic'd himself and recorded everything he did in his life and made documentaries out of that, you
Oh
know.
really? Oh, we could definitely do that for sure.
Yeah. No, that'd be cool.
Yeah, no, for
Wedding
sure.
Confidential or Wedding Planner Confidential.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's too funny. Okay, well, let's tell everybody where they can find you, website, social media, all those good things.
Yeah, well, I'm calling it listenwithus.com. Listen with us because this private link that I'm sharing with the couple, it's like, it'd be Leah and Eric listenwithus.com. So it's like a way to invite family and friends to listen. So it's listenwithus.com or listenwith.us, either of those.
Okay,
And
cool.
my name is Will Coley, and my shingle, I guess, is Aquifer Media, which, funny, it's named after my grandfather, who was a well driller. So that's
Oh,
why I call
really?
it
Oh,
Aquifer Media.
cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool. And we'll tag you on everything as well. And we so appreciate you coming on, and
Oh, I
hopefully we
appreciate it.
can work together now that my head's spinning of ways that we can incorporate this even with our clients. So
No, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I enjoyed speaking to you, and
yeah.
I'm glad it's a podcast to do this because I love this. So
Right? No, that's
yeah.
awesome. Cool. Well, thank you for joining This Takes the Cake. Until next time.